It's Spoilerin time, the show where we take all of that good knowledge from our other show, Cordkillers, and use it to be able to watch some good stuff and talk about it with each other. This week, we're going to talk about Deadwood, the HBO series, episode 9 of season 1, Counterpart season 1, episode 5, and the movie Black Panther. I'm Tom Merritt, and of course, my good friend Brian Brushwood is here to chew the fat.
Heck yes, and also flap my gums. So if you ever want to see somebody who can flap gums and chew fat, get ready for my new variety show, Gross, the Musical. You're gonna love it.
Why doesn't that man have teeth?
Hey man, normally we take a moment to peek in on the movie draft, but it's been a hot minute since we wrapped up this the winter draft.
Discussions have begun.
Okay, so we're already talking about the summer. I'm really excited.
Apparently, our commissioner's doesn't think that the end of the summer has any good movies in it. So I think we're trying to work that out. But discussions are coming.
By commissioner, who do you mean?
Eileen Rivera, your wife.
Oh, I may or may not have had lunch with her and convinced her that there are more good movies coming out later this year than she thought.
So the conspiracy theories have already begun. Yeah, influenced before the season even began. Tom Merritt, who was known to be in a relationship with the commissioner
over Furebo chicken in Japantown. All right, let's start off with talking about the movie Black Panther, which I'm very frightened to talk to you about, Brian, because I adore this movie. I saw it twice, and I love it, and you didn't like it.
I didn't not like it. So I was trying to reconstruct what exactly went through my head. Maybe I wanted it to be something that it wasn't. It was a very good popcorn movie, right? It was very good by the numbers and everything.
Very good action, very good tension.
Yes, well executed. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. And I was like, why didn't it resonate? And I kept thinking of Ant-Man. And Ant-Man, a lot of people liked more than I did. And I think that if I'm going to make a guess, as a kid who grew up with Marvel comic books, I think that I have unfairly and unjustifiably given an automatic bonus upgrade to all of the properties that I have fond memories of as a kid, and failed to do that for the ones I didn't. I didn't have an overly
big... Well, but that's natural. You're gonna love the things you're familiar with and loved as a kid. That makes sense. I get that.
I guess also, were there many surprises for you in Black Panther?
I don't know.
The moment you saw Forrest Whitaker, didn't you know he was going to die?
No.
Oh, really?
I did not know he was going to die.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I wouldn't say there were a ton of surprises, but I also didn't care. That's not what I was in it for, was twists and surprises. This was a great action movie. This had a car chase that didn't bore me. This had a James Bond feel that was fun and different. I absolutely adore Letitia Williams' character and love the banter. I thought the dialogue was fantastic, and I liked that Michael B. Jordan was playing a complex villain who at one point convinced me was right until finally Chadwick Boseman's character comes around and says, actually, no, he's not, and here's why. And that's why I love the movie, because it worked for me on multiple levels. It sounds like that either didn't work for you or wasn't enough.
It didn't. It just didn't deeply resonate. There's also presentational elements that I think affect it. We have that new movie theater across the way, Sky Cinemas, and there's bugs in a new theater. And in this case, the first 15 minutes, I was really confused why... in the 5.1 surround sound, one of the channels was dedicated to having a person describe what was happening on screen at all times.
Oh, no. Oh, well, that would ruin it. You're right.
For the first 15 minutes, it was like children playing with an improvised basketball set made of a crate, blah, blah, blah.
I want to say you need to see it again.
I do. I do. It started off wobbly, and it never collapsed. Like at some point, I'll say even Guardians of the Galaxy started off really wobbly for me. I thought that the opening was really heavy-handed with the mom having cancer and all that stuff, and then suddenly space aliens or whatever. And then at some point, once the humor hit on all cylinders and the wavelength synchronized, I was like, I get it. I'm in. I'm dialed all the way in. Black Panther started off wobbly for me and never quite hit 100%. But I agree. I should give it another try.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would necessarily change your opinion, but it certainly is not a good way to get introduced to a movie, no matter what. I do think that there are certain things about it that I love because of me, right? I think there's lots that is beyond me, and that's why it's got such a high rating and it's done so good, because lots of people are seeing things they love in it. And I think the story of a technologically hidden society that is being accused of not having used its technology to help its fellows out, its fellow brethren out, is a great story. There are also things like, I watched This Is Us, so seeing Sterling K. Brown as the brother of the king at the beginning was fun to see him do a different character. I lived in Oakland for several years, and so when you show the kids playing basketball in the 90s and you're like, that's a 90s era AC Transit bus back there. And then later in the movie, when they show them modern day in that same building and they've got the modern AC Transit bus, I'm like, these people are paying attention. Like, they actually did this right, because I feel like I actually do know where that is. I know that church that was in the background, and I feel like, yeah, this is representing Oakland correctly. That's not something that most people are going to give a damn about. Yeah, well, and I think that's a really good point, and I think it's why, again, I don't want to couch it as anything less than wonderful about Black Panther, but just something that for so many other movies, it caused me to reflect on why I loved Logan so much, because there's so much shorthand. Like, they don't have to explain the feels of finding out that you're a father. They don't have to explain the feels of dealing with aging parents, or of wondering if you're past your prime, or any of those things. Like that was, I was just in there instantly, and there were fewer of those immediate connections. I don't know what it's like to be a monarch of a technologically advanced. Well, sure, this is a different kind of movie, though, right? Correct. I love Shuri. I can't. I got to go back to that again. Like, that character, I adore, because she's smart, but she's also funny, and she's willing to kind of be a little bit rebellious. I'm a sucker for that moment where they've got, the big traditional ritual combat, and will anyone challenge? And nobody's supposed to challenge, but somebody's going to challenge, because that's what has to happen. And she raises her hand, and for like a half second, I fell for it. Like, what? And then she's like, come on, I'm hungry. This course is really tight. Let's get out of here. And that's hilarious. And then sets you up for the real, like, okay, but you knew it was coming. Here comes the actual challenge. I thought that worked for me. I'm curious if you looked at that and was like, schmaltz, don't like it. Well, and I don't know. It's like, seemed to me like the bad guy won fair and square, threw the dude off a cliff. And then it's like, well, that's the second one. I'm talking about the first one. Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, no, I thought that moment was all great. I enjoyed all that. The set piece, it was gorgeous. And I loved it being on the edge. I liked the, basically the idea of 5 kingdoms, all, pretty much, you got the one that's a little more aloof. And of course, they come to save the day at the end and stuff. Familiar territory, but exquisitely executed. And I want to give it both. Okay, here, I'm in order. You ready? Because I feel the same way about Black Panther the way I do about Ant-Man. I feel like I watched Ant-Man once and it didn't click with me, and I never gave it another chance. Now that Ant-Man and the Wasp is coming out, I'm gonna give Ant-Man another try and see if it really clicks this time, because I want to, because Bonnie never saw Ant-Man. And I want to go into the first romantic comedy version of a Marvel movie on the same page with my girl, and then I'm going to, if it clicks the second time, which it didn't on the first time, then I'll know for sure that Black Panther probably is the exact same animal, and I should watch it again and see if it clicks. Literally a panther, yeah. Yeah, Brian, an ant and a panther, twice. Different things. Not first time I saw it was in an older theater. And it was good. Watching it the second time in the upgraded Dolby Atmosphere theater and all that was fantastic, and saw things that I didn't notice the first time around. The whole thing about James Bond and Shuri being Q, like that, I noticed it the first time, but I saw more of that thread the second time, just as an example. So I liked it the first time more than you. But I definitely liked it even more the second time through for me.
Well, and also, hold on. So all of a sudden, like the movie begins right after dude's father got assassinated, and that's his sister doing the Q role, right?
Yes,
she seemed awfully jaunty, giving double middle fingers just minutes after her father was assassinated in her opening.
We all
scenes.
deal with grief in different ways, Brian.
So she has a very silly way of dealing with grief, about bragging about her new inventions.
But I think a lot of it seemed like the Wakandan people embraced death and living on as a legend. You know, to them it just meant something different. Like
it seemed like we've got past that part of the story. Like we skipped through the we're all crying and sad part anyway for most of the characters, to be honest. All right.
Wait, hold on. But actually, Bryce saw it too, and I'd love to get Bryce's take on it.
I thought it was very good. It's that's the thing with Marvel movies, and I probably wouldn't have seen this if I didn't have Movie Pass, because I think Marvel movies are maybe a little predictable. I think it's a very good action movie, and I think it's a very good superhero movie, but it was good. It was good on the Tom Merritt scale. I would say it's good, but it's still just, I think popcorn movie is maybe a little mean, but I'd probably say that's not far off. I think
so,
it's
like
a very
really
good Marvel
high-end gourmet popcorn movie.
Yeah, with like truffle oil and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's a good Marvel movie, but I think that's probably about.
Yeah,
as far
I think
as it gets
okay.
All right. My wife wants to buy a Lexus after seeing this movie. I'm just saying. Product placement really worked. All right. Anything else on Black Panther?
No.
Let's become mirrors of ourselves. Talk about Counterpart, episode 5 of the season. We already have the Howards in their opposite sides, so we're exploring more of that. Our Howard is now just kind of enjoying his freedom, walking around and spending a lot of time with his mirror wife because she's not in a coma, and so we could talk to her. On the other side, Howard Prime is trying to lead Howard's life and plays Go, and you see him, kind of predictable, like he almost wins the Go game and then realizes, Howard wouldn't win this. That's going to raise suspicion. But among the events that happen are discovering a little bit more about the conspiracy on the Prime side, where he sees how his wife, his Emily, or the other Emily, is much more of a spy,
a player.
He thinks his Emily is, but maybe his Emily is more like that. And on the other end, we see that there's like these 3 special agents that have sneaked over and are executing a plan.
General Zod and the chick and the big burly guy get released from the Phantom Zone, and they show up and start using their superpowers on Earth.
And we actually find out a little bit of what's happening through Mousy, who's keeping a secret pair of people who are their mirrors in a secret house. And they say there's not only somebody on the 3rd floor that's on the other side, but this is part of a wide conspiracy to send illegals over and infiltrate your side that's been going on for years and might be finally coming to fruition. Yeah.
So there's a number of things that I started off this season finding frustrating, not the least of which is the steadfast refusal to tell me the story of both of the worlds in a flat, give it to me fast, give it to me fast. And instead, they're like, no, we're going to make you focus on the characters. We're going to make you focus on their dynamics. We're going to make you understand a very small, very personal story. And then we're going to slowly expand it from there. And we're going to give you more details of the world around you. We're going to make the relationships more complicated and interesting because, we found out that Howard Prime was in contact with regular Howard's wife beforehand. And in this episode, we find out that moment when they're playing Go, and Howard Prime figures out, like, there's something this guy's surprised at my Go playing ability, throws the game, and immediately figures out that dude had been having an affair with Emily in regular world.
Well,
right?
he sees him asking about Emily at the hospital and getting angry that he can't see him, and is like, I know something's up now.
The way I read it was the moment the Go game happened and the way he was reacting just to the way Howard Prime was playing seemed to have set him on edge, and I read suspicion from that point forward, and everything else.
I took that as Howard Prime realizing like, Howard's not very good at this game. I better dial it back.
Yeah, I don't know. There was something, it was so perfectly acted when he was like, have you been taking lessons? It was so perfectly patronizing that it set off my alarms. Like, that's not a friend.
All that said to me was Howard's really sucky, and that guy is like, you've been taking lessons because you're not very good usually.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whichever way you interpreted the Go game, he certainly has no doubt after he sees the Go player get so upset at the hospital, and of course that's what he follows in.
Do you feel like there was we certainly know that there was communication happening between Howard Prime and regular Emily. Do you feel like there was something more to that? Do you think that maybe they had visited and been physical with each other, a relationship?
Maybe. I think it could go either way, and it still would be him having feelings for her because she's Emily, right? Same way for our Howard, it would work for him, whether they actually acted upon those feelings or not. How much mixed emotions would you have if the Emily that's not your Emily, who's divorced you in the other reality, but has been nice to you in this reality, has been cheating on not only you, but also the other you, and like, wow, that's just got to blow your mind.
And it makes me really glad that they've gone very slowly, bit by bit, through this. I had something else. How adorable is our Howard? I guess it'll be our Howard and Howard Prime. Seeing our Howard fall for Emily Prime is very adorable to watch. It's painful almost, and to see him, talking, with his daughter and that he never had and all that stuff. A little bit light. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it carries out this feeling that I got last episode of Howard Prime is actually better at Howard's life than our Howard is. And our Howard's actually better at Howard Prime's life than Howard Prime was.
Apparently so, right? I do like the fact that for the first time, our Howard meets Alexander Pope, and they've done a really good job of leaving Pope as enough of an enigma that I can see him being the worst villain I've ever seen. I could see him being as a pragmatic person who does what needs to be done. He's still very much a Rorschach test. He's an ink blot to me right now, and I'm looking forward. Alexander Pope has gotten more interesting by this episode than he's ever been to me at this point. It's the first time that I really started to ask, what's your game? What's going on here?
Yeah. And I love how he knows how to push his Howard's Prime's buttons. Those don't work so well on our Howard.
Sure. Yeah, yes.
Our Howard's just kind of confused. Like, what? What's your deal, dude?
I also like that we're finally getting details on the worlds. We know that whether it's thought to be a conspiracy theory or not, one world, losing, what was it, 7% of the population?
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, and you gotta be angry at, even if there's no basis to the idea that one world poisoned the other world. When one has been set back that far, you have to have built-in automatic resentment from that point forward. And this takes us back to what we were talking about last week, which is why this would play just as well if it was set in 1989 and was a story of East and West Germany. I really adore that they're just giving us little niblets as we go along.
Yeah. I still don't know what to make of that whole house scene. Like, obviously, the purpose of going there was to get the intel that will help them stop the conspiracy and kind of bring us in.
I mean, the real purpose was to show us some of the interesting configurations that can occur in a world where maybe you get along with your counterpart and her significant other.
But why? I get why they hid the counterpart from the other side. I guess part of the deal was like, if you do that, you also have to have her and her husband.
You know what? To me, it reminded me a little bit of spoiler if you have not seen The Prestige, the fact that there's two characters that commit to living one life, and they are just made of a different stuff than most people. And I that's what I read there is there's a lot of people in the world, and there's a lot of configurations that work for people.
That movie Sliding Doors would have ended much differently.
Yes, exactly. If she had encountered both versions of herself.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on Counterpart?
Did we have any big twist at the end of this one? I guess we saw. We're continuing to watch the assassin chick who we've seen her quote unquote good side violin playing version die, but
she's on the run from her ex-lover who kind of turned on her last time,
right?
And that lover is in with General Zod and his components.
I mean, I kind of like the fact that it's like we got some bad guy characters doing bad guy stuff, and it's like I'm glad that in a world where we've seen shades of gray from one side to the other, like I'm not sure who's better at what. Now all of a sudden, just to have just pure black, like these are bad guys showing up to do bad stuff, and I don't trust them.
Well, and now what's her name? I want to say Broadwell, but that's not it.
Let's just call her Broadwell. That'll go over really well.
Yeah, the assassin.
Baldwin.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it was close, and it was a B. Baldwin just being badass, when the guy asks her for smoke and just turns and lets the smoke come out of her stitched lip.
When she's been hit up on, yeah.
And then obviously she's made a friend at the bar who gives her the free soup, so I'm assuming that will play into things later as well.
I like the way that was executed as well, where it was just so friendly, so on the surface, so read into this what you want. That was my mistake. You can enjoy it, and then.
Yep. I can tell you needed the soup. No strings.
Right.
There you go. All right. Let's move on to Deadwood, where because of the treaty, a man from the capital of the territory comes to Deadwood to talk about legitimizing the settlement, because the background here is that Deadwood is an illegal settlement on native land, but that land is going to become part of the territory now, and so they'll be under the state's or the territory's law. And to legitimize all that and make sure that they can keep their holdings and their gold and everything, they've got to negotiate. Swearingen is doing the negotiating, and that's kind of a fun thing where the guy from the territory is trying to be straightforward, but he's governmental, so he has to be. And Swearingen's just like, well, give me the list of bribes. Who do I have to pay?
Yeah.
And amongst that conversation, it turns out that what they need is the people of Deadwood to form a government-like body so that they show good faith towards law-abidingness, but don't actually form a government, because that would be rebellious.
Right. Well, and it actually makes sense, and I'm sure that this is based on some version of historical truth.
It is, yeah.
Right? Boy, how much did you hate Farnham getting mayor? Like, and it was so weird to me. He's like, I would like to be mayor. It's like, of course you would. You're a coward, and you're useless. And that
did not surprise me at all. He's a status-seeking person above everything else. Did not surprise me that Swearingen's like, I don't give an F who's mayor. Sure, you can be mayor. It doesn't mean anything.
It did surprise me that literally everyone else was that same way too. Nobody cares.
They were like too stunned to speak up, or they were afraid to speak up. I didn't get it. Like, really? You're just going to let him be mayor? Like, I guess they just didn't want to have the fight.
Well, I think they know that Farnham could crown himself God Emperor of the universe, and it would affect the power dynamic of Deadwood in zero ways, right? And I think that's how low Farnham is that nobody could be even bothered to be concerned with what he was calling himself.
I like how Bullock says the only reason I volunteered to be fire commissioner is because I didn't realize that I was afraid I'd get stuck with something else.
With sheriff, specifically sheriff.
Like, I didn't realize we were going to not have a sheriff, and I was pretty sure, because I've been in Justified in the future, that I was going to end up being sheriff.
What is the name of Buffalo Bill had two friends, the male and the female. The female was Jane. The male was what's his name? He opens the courier shop.
Utter's Freight.
Utter.
Charlie.
Charlie Utter.
I remember that because I just hear Jane like, Charlie?
Charlie Utter was the star of this episode to me. His sincerity, his being adrift, not knowing, when he was with Bill, he knew what his job was and he knew who he was. He's dealing with a massive identity crisis, and he knows that part of what it means to become part of the elite of Deadwood is to play the part. But man, is he acting so perfectly in this ill-fitting suit, and he ends up running into who's the madam from Cy's place?
Is it Janie?
That sounds right. I mean, she's shopping around looking for a place to set up a brothel, and they connect, and it's just adorable and hypnotic. And not that I would expect there to be any chemistry between the two on any kind of sexual or whatever level, but you could just tell, like, the attempt at a friendship was so delightfully awkward and just enchanting. Charlie Utter, I think, is my favorite character of this minute. Followed by Calamity Jane, who just is heartbreaking, catching her napping by leaning her face against the side of an alley. And Charlie
with Joni. It's not Joni.
Joni, that's what it is. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Jane leaning against the building and not in any sense ashamed. She doesn't stop leaning when somebody comes up. She's just like keeps leaning and keeps talking.
Yep.
Like, this is who I am. And yet totally tragic, because that is who she is. And Charlie is sad to see it as well, but Charlie also knows Jane well enough to know, like, there's not a whole lot he can do. So he's going to offer what he can offer. And if she doesn't take it, she doesn't take it. And he can't make her take it. And she doesn't. So she's going to be out of here, it looks like.
There was one scene that just felt weirdly gratuitous to me. During the time that Cy kills the two scamsters, who would be thieves, I did not feel like Ricky Jay's character, the dice thrower, stood out of line or did anything that really merited any kind of backlash from Cy. And yet we see Cy bent out of his mind with rage, blind drunk, and then just goes on a tear about how Ricky Jay's character likes boys. Eddie likes boys. I don't mind that he would be awful that way. I mind that I cannot for the life of me sense the motivation why the character Cy would go off on his most valuable asset for essentially nothing. And I don't know if it's a case where the guilt was eating at him, maybe, but I feel like Cy's fairly reprehensible, and there's nothing about what he does that he would feel guilty about.
Well, okay, so this is the difference between a real villain and a paper villain, right? A paper villain kills those two kids, doesn't think about it, for real. An actual human being, even if they are psychopathic, which Cy definitely is,
right,
has uncomfortable feelings about it. And I don't think he's feeling guilty about killing them. I think he doesn't like that Eddie is looking at him accusingly.
That's okay. He feels and resents Eddie's disapproval.
Exactly.
And Joni's disapproval. He already got it from Joni, but he's used to getting it from Joni. He's maybe not accustomed to getting it from Eddie, and it bubbles up and comes out in this drunken rampage. Okay, that I buy. That I could totally see.
Yeah, I think that might be it, because I was at first I was confused, like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it comes out of nowhere. But I think that's what Eddie's feeling like too, is like, where is this coming from, Cy? Why are you doing this? And that makes sense to me. I'm not even sure that I fully formulated why until we talked it out just now. But yeah, that would fit. And it makes you wonder if he's even going to follow up on his promise to Joni. She's like, "Oh, I found a place," and he's like, "Good, great." It's like, all right. How's he going to undermine that promise? Because I don't think he thought she'd find a place.
Or actually, what he didn't think is sort of like having the dog where it's like, you open the door, you're like, oh, you want to run? Go ahead, run, I dare you. And then the dog sits there, you're like, yeah, I didn't think so. And you shut the door. Yeah. And instead the dog just trotted outside. And
he's
it's
like, whoa, wait a minute.
That was the crime, was that she even set foot and went shopping. Right. And we'll see how that manifests in the future.
I just to go back, and I know we talked about it already, but I want to agree with you on Charlie. That bit about him being uncomfortable in the coat, so realistic. Like, we've all been there when we're dressed up for something and we're like, well, everybody tells me it looks good, but I feel dumb. Do I look dumb? Does it look good on me? Like, I don't usually wear fancy clothes like this. And what's great is, to us as viewers, he just looks like period piece. Like, yeah, you look totally normal. Like, you look like you fit into Deadwood. And so that really helped you understand Charlie's character quite a bit.
How did you feel about the relation? I don't even want to say sexual tension, but the relationship tension between Bullock and the widow, and the fact that this is the first episode that he says, I wrote my wife and kids. It looks like we're going legit, and I'm gonna have them out there. And you had that kind of like, I don't know exactly how I felt. First of all, how strong is that charisma connection between the two of them? Were you disappointed to hear that? Like, oh, they have a thing that can never be happening here.
Well, I wasn't disappointed, but I was like, oh, okay, so maybe he should have told her that earlier. He's kind of known what's going on.
Yeah.
But then when we get to the end of the conversation and he makes a point of telling her, the son's not mine, she was my brother's wife, and I married her after, it's sort of like he's saying, I didn't tell you because I don't really love my wife.
Right, but I am a man of duty and honor who sees things, and it's like, if you're DT be on the sly, if you're down to be on the...
I actually think Bullock is saying to her, if I followed my selfish heart, yes, but I have a duty, and to make us both not violate my duty, I'm calling for them to be coming out here, and you need to know that.
Yeah, which is the exact infuriatingly responsible thing Bullock would do, isn't it?
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Raylan?
Raylan. Anything surprising from Swearingen during this? I did enjoy the matter of fact, like, this is all crap. We got to pretend to be a government. Let's just split it all up. Let's go.
Yeah. Nothing terribly shocking, huh? Like, he had a little bit with Trixie, but not a lot that was different than previous interactions that I recall anyway. And then yeah, him being the, like, we're going to have the meeting in my place as a bit of a power move, but also practical. And everybody's like, yeah, well, of course we'll have it in Swearingen's place. That makes sense. And also showing his pragmatic side of, he's not in it for power that he doesn't need. Otherwise he'd be saying, I'm mayor and I'm going to run this town. He's like, no, Cy can have his side of town. And I'm not interested in this government because it doesn't mean anything. This is just a way of making sure that the bribes getting paid gets us what we need.
Yeah, I'm still impressed that he had what it took to realize that the gold in the claim was not the real prize. The real prize was Deadwood itself, and that he's got his eye on being the center, the hub of everything in that world.
All right. Well, other than talking about the clothes being in the pigsty, I don't think we've covered everything.
Yeah, no, I think we got it all in there. Yeah, we covered it. We got it.
Yeah, we got it.
That wood's dead.
So thanks, everybody. I hope you're enjoying these recaps. Let us know what you think. Cordkillers@gmail.com. And if you want to get these earlier, like the day after Counterpart, for instance, you can sign up and support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll see you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.